What would you do if, on the happiest day of your life, strangers walked into your wedding, looked you in the eye, and told you everything you thought you knew was a lie? That's exactly what happened when three young women, identical triplets, crashed a billionaire's wedding. They weren't there for champagne, they weren't there for the flowers, and they certainly weren't there to watch the vows. They came with one purpose, one devastating truth, and a DNA test that would shake the very foundation of his life. The grand ballroom sparkled with chandeliers that dripped golden light across polished marble floors. A string quartet played softly, their bows gliding across violins, filling the air with delicate romance. Every seat was filled with business magnates, celebrities, and politicians, all gathered to celebrate the union of billionaire real estate mogul Alexander Hayes and socialite bride-to-be, Clarissa Moreau. Alexander, tall and composed, stood at the altar, his tailored suit making him look every bit the man who had everything. For years, the world had watched him climb the ladder of wealth, a single father raising his only son, Ethan, after losing his wife in a tragic accident. Today was supposed to mark a new chapter, a union not just of love, but of power. But fate had other plans. The heavy double doors of the ballroom creaked open, drawing every eye. At first, the guests assumed it was a late arrival. But when three young women strode in, heads high, each the mirror image of the other, the room fell into whispers. Identical triplets, 20-something, fierce-eyed, and dressed in understated elegance, moved in unison toward the altar. Clarissa's face twisted in annoyance. "Who are they?" she hissed under her breath, her hand clutching Alexander's arm. Alexander frowned, but before he could speak, the tallest of the three triplets stepped forward. Her voice carried across the hushed room. "Alexander Hayes," she said firmly, "you don't know us. But you should." Gasps rippled. Guests craned their necks, cameras flashed, and Clarissa's irritation sharpened into outrage. "This is my wedding," she snapped. "Get them out." But the triplets didn't flinch. The second one raised a white envelope and held it high. "We're not here to ruin your wedding. We're here for the truth. The truth you've been denied, and the truth we've been denied our whole lives." Alexander's sharp gaze softened just slightly, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What truth?" he asked, his voice steady but low. The third triplet, her voice breaking with emotion, whispered words that silenced even the whispering crowd. "You're our father." The entire ballroom seemed to freeze. Guests stared in disbelief. Clarissa's grip on Alexander's arm turned to stone. And Alexander himself felt his chest tighten as though the ground had shifted beneath his feet. The triplet with the envelope stepped closer, handing it to him. "They called her hot but dumb." That was the nickname whispered behind her back, the label plastered on her like a cruel tattoo she never asked for. People laughed, rolled their eyes, and assumed she had nothing more than a pretty face. But one day, when the cruel words became too loud, someone unexpected stood up for her. Not just anyone, but a man whose life had been defined by responsibility, love, and loss. A single dad who spoke with dignity, not just for her, but for every person who had ever been underestimated. And that moment? It changed everything. Sophia had always been the kind of girl who turned heads when she walked into a room. Long waves of dark hair, hazel eyes that caught the light, and a smile that seemed too perfect for this world. But to most people, that beauty was all she was worth. She worked at a small cafe downtown, serving lattes and cappuccinos with a cheerful smile. Customers flirted, men smirked, and women scoffed. The whispers never ended. "Hot but dumb. She's probably just a face with no brain. She's pretty, but I wouldn't hire her for anything else." Sophia heard it all. Sometimes she laughed it off, pretending it didn't sting, but at night, lying alone in her tiny apartment, the words replayed like echoes in her chest. They didn't know she spent nights studying business management, that she had dreams of opening her own bakery, that she read history books for fun. No, none of that mattered. The world had decided her worth. One evening, during the cafe's busiest hour, a group of office workers filled a table in the corner. They ordered their coffees, loud and demanding, treating her like she was invisible. As she turned to walk away, one of them muttered just loud enough. "Pretty face. Zero brains." The table erupted in laughter. Sophia froze. Her cheeks burned. She wanted to defend herself, but the words stuck in her throat. She gripped the tray tighter, trying not to cry. That's when another voice cut through the noise. Calm. Steady. Different. That's enough. She turned and saw him. Daniel. A single father who often visited the cafe with his little daughter, Lily. Everyone knew his story. He lost his wife to cancer 2 years ago and had been raising Lily alone ever since. He carried himself with quiet strength, always polite, always gentle. Now, he was standing up from his table, his gaze fixed on the men who had mocked her. "You call her dumb because it's easier than admitting she has more dignity than you," he said, his tone sharp but respectful. "You think words make you powerful. But all I see are grown men trying to tear down a woman who's working hard. That doesn't make you clever, it makes you weak." The room went silent. The laughter died instantly. The men shifted uncomfortably, and one muttered something under his breath before they all looked away. Sophia stood there, stunned. No one had ever defended her like that. Not once. Daniel glanced at her, his expression. His voice cracked, "But if you'll let me. I want to start making it right." Tears streamed down the girls' faces as the room filled with silence. Some guests were in awe, some recording history, and others wiping their own eyes. For the billionaire who once thought he had it all, the true treasure wasn't in the empire he built or the wedding he had planned. It was in the 3 daughters who had walked into his life, uninvited but destined. And as Alexander Hayes pulled his daughters into his arms, the entire world watched a wedding transform into a reunion, a scandal into salvation, and a broken past into the fragile beginnings of healing.